they say, can they be that close? Just let me state for the record, we're giving love in a family dose. We are family. Hey, I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up everybody and sing. Sing it to me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up everybody and sing. Living life is fun and we've just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we have for the future and our goals in sight. We know we don't get depressed. Here's what we call our golden rule. Have faith in you and the things you do. You won't go wrong. Oh no, this is our family jewel. We are family. Sing it to me. I got all my sisters with me. Sing it to me. We are family. I can hear you guys. Get up everybody and sing. We have faith in you and the things you do. Hey, I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, y'all.
They're there for your first year. They give you your first beer. When you get your heart broke, they're there for your worst year. Don't get you at all, but your apple don't fall too far from home. They own too much wicker and drink too much liquor. You'd wash your hands of them, the blood's always thicker. You might look just like them, that don't mean you like them, but you love them. Family is family, in church or in prison. You get what you get and you don't get to pick them. They might smoke like chimneys, but give you their kidneys. Yeah, friends come in handy, but family is family. They're there when you're married, divorced and remarried. You fall out of touch, but then someone gets buried, and you're right back together like no time has ever gone by. Can't live with or without them. You might talk about them, but if someone else does, well, then you'll knock them out. 'Cause when it's all said and done, they're the only ones that you got. Family is family, in church or in prison. You get what you get and you don't get to pick them. They might smoke like chimneys, but give you their kidneys. Yeah, friends come in handy, but family is family.
sinner. I never sinned. I got a friend in Jesus. So you know that when I die, it's gonna set me up with the Spirit in the sky. Oh, set me up with the Spirit in the sky. That's where I'm gonna go when I die. When I die and they lay me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. Go to the place that's the best.
When I got the news today, I didn't know what to say, so I just hung up the phone. I took a walk to clear my head, and this is where the walk-in led. Can't believe you're really gone. Don't feel like going home, so I'm gonna sit right here on the edge of this pier and watch the sunset disappear, and drink a beer. Funny how the good ones go too soon, but the good Lord knows the reasons why, I guess. Sometimes a greater plan is kinda hard to understand. Right now it don't make sense. I can't make it all make sense, so I'm gonna sit right here on the edge of this pier and watch the sunset disappear, and drink a beer. So long, my friend, until we meet again. I'll remember you and all the times that we used to sit right here on the edge of this pier and watch the sunset disappear, and drink a beer, drink a beer, drink a beer.
As I started to prepare for this service today, I was thinking a lot about Brian's life. I remembered a short reflection that was written by Andy Rooney, who, as many of you will know, was an American writer and a great humorist. It reminded me again that although we certainly do not have control over many things in our lives, we can all choose how we are going to respond to our own individual and unique situations that make up our lives on this earth. Rooney said, "For most of life, nothing amazingly wonderful may happen. But if you don't enjoy getting up and working and finishing your work well, and then sitting down to a simple meal with beloved family and friends, then the chances are you're not going to be very happy. But if someone bases his or her happiness on major events like getting a great, new, fantastic job with a huge paycheck, making huge amounts of money, or having a totally flawless marriage, or maybe a trip to Paris or somewhere exotic every year, well, if that's what you depend on, you're probably not going to be happy much of the time. If, on the other hand, happiness depends on having a good breakfast, watching a beautiful bird outside the window, enjoying a glass of wine every now and then, having a short nap, or a silly and hilarious conversation with a dear friend. If we depend on those things, then we are more likely to live with our fair share of happiness. I think that Brian would agree that all those simple, common, and everyday pleasures were very important to living a happy life. After meeting and sharing a very long conversation with Wayne in preparation for this time together, I also believe that Brian made a very wise choice to live his life totally appreciating, loving, enjoying many of the day-to-day happenings, like his job, his dear family, his beloved husband, and his many valuable friendships. And he made the choice also to spread his love of life to others. I welcome each one of you here today as we pause to truly celebrate and respectfully honor the very rich and amazing life of Brian Thomas. Your presence here today not only indicates your desire to lovingly remember his life, but also your desire to offer support and encouragement to his very close loved ones at this time of great and painful loss. I know that Brian's loved ones deeply appreciate your thoughtfulness and your concern for them. I would also like to welcome those who are joining us via live stream. Due to all the restrictions with the pandemic, it is most unfortunate that many of you are unable to be physically present here with us today. But we know that your hearts and that your kind and loving thoughts are indeed with us, and we appreciate that very, very much. I would also like to mention at this time, before we actually start the service, is that a little later in the service, there will be an opportunity for anyone that would care to come up and share a special memory or a recollection that they have of Brian. And I'm just telling you that now so you have a little time to think about it. At this time, I'm now going to invite James Hoffert, a longtime friend of Brian's and Wayne's, to come up and share some of his wonderful memories of his very close friendship with Brian.
Brian and I have had a long history together. We were introduced by a mutual friend, Robbie Duncan, almost 27 years ago, when Rob was moving to Calgary. He was sure we would hit it off, and he was right. Our friendship was instant. We started having lunch together once or twice a week, whenever Brian was off or working evenings. As everyone knows, I'm not much of a cook. However, whenever Brian was free, we were at Earl's. We shared our lives and stories of our loves and heartaches. We seemed to have a lot of heartaches back then. We became family very quickly. When you grow up a little different than others, you create your own family unit. The bond is truly stronger than blood and lasts a lifetime. I'm sure I speak for everyone here. Brian will always be in our hearts as a true brother and friend. Hazel and Mike, you should be so proud because you were fundamental in raising an amazing man. He was so kind and loving, had a laugh that was truly infectious, and he shared that with everybody that was near him. His laugh would permeate any room he was in, and that is truly something to aspire to. He loved you both with all his heart, and we all know Brian had the kindest of hearts. His family meant everything to him, from your Sunday family suppers to the summer talent shows at the lake. He always, those boots were mine, by the way. You know what I'm talking about? He always considered himself very lucky to be part of such a loving family. His sisters looked out for him, each in their own special way. Brian shared many stories about each of you. He was grateful even when you pissed him off. And I have to say that was very rare. All of us here, and the many who couldn't be here, are so very lucky Brian blessed us that we too had the opportunity to be part of his family he loved so much. Brian always strived for that. He wanted you to share in everything he loved. That is why once you came for a visit, he never wanted you to leave. How many times were we out on his front porch as the sun was rising, playing the DJ until dawn? Brian loved his music. One of the most treasured gifts from Brian was his gift of his music. He created the music for my 50th birthday and Ernie and my wedding. I know every song was a reflection of his love. I know he was always a little disappointed that the only music I had was from the 80s, and the same CD was in the CD player for months on end. I'm surprised he still liked me. When we were younger, Brian loved entertaining in his little house. It was always filled with laughter, music, and of course, tequila. And not saying we didn't get into a little trouble from time to time, but those stories will remain in our hearts. I can only speak for myself, but a smile always comes across my face when I think of them. I'm sure everyone here could fill the room with laughter, reminiscing of all the times we spent together. Oh, if the walls could talk. I confessed to Brian many years later that at one of those parties, another friend, Tara, and myself mixed up his albums and album covers. Yes, it was on purpose. I am surprised he forgave us. We all know that his music was sacred. Thankfully, he did forgive us. Brian always forgave everyone, no matter how stupid you may have been. All you had to do was ask. Wayne, you've been part of our lunch conversations for so many years. It first started because he was telling me stories of these friends, Wayne and Darcy. I had not met you yet. He told me how wonderful you were, but he wasn't sure how we would get along because, well, some might say, I was a little light in the loafers. And Wayne, you were still banging on the closet door with your work boots. Brian didn't care. He wanted me to meet you. Jump ahead a number of years and guess what? We're having lunch on Earl's patio. Yes, a reoccurring theme for us. Brian was acting a little strange. Something was going on. I knew we were going to be talking about boys that day. He was being a little more coy than usual. He was hinting at a new romance. He asked if I could guess who the stranger could be. It took me less than a second to say Wayne. Of course. We started laughing. Brian was surprised that I responded so quickly and the fact that I was right. I was usually right. I just said, honey, it's obvious. I'm just surprised it took you this long. Then he looked down, raised his head slowly, with a huge smile on his face, and we both started giggling. If I wanted to sound butch, I would say laughed heartily, but when it came to Brian, we were always giggling, to a point of tears streaming down our cheeks, and our faces would hurt for days. I'm sure there isn't a person in this room that doesn't know what I'm talking about. In our early years, we used to love bantering back and forth, making fun of each other and the stupid things we had done. If somebody was listening to us, they might have thought we were two crazy people who didn't like each other. It was completely the opposite. We loved each other and would do or say anything to make each other laugh. That's friendship, and that's love. Minutes later, we would have the most serious, intimate discussion, sharing how we felt about anything and everything. Brian had so many different qualities that I am so honored to have experienced. I found as we both aged, Brian did soften a little, and our banter did change. He was kind enough to bring me along with him, to which I am extremely grateful. As different as I feel we were, we had many similarities. Brian used to bug the hell out of me that I always had to have everything too perfect. The house, the entertaining. Some might say I can be a little particular. Brian always prided himself in being more casual. Leave your shoes on when you enter the house. Well, maybe not the shoes. Spill a drink, no problem. Dance on the sofa, sure. Sit on the stove, if you burn your ass, not my problem. By the way, that was me, and yes, my legs were crossed holding a large butcher knife. Long story. That's the same night Debbie was sleeping in the driveway. That's all I'm going to say about that. As I was writing this, I was very happy reminiscing, as well as very teary-eyed. It will be these memories that I will take with me. As we've all experienced, Brian's way of entertaining changed. He and Wayne's hospitality is amazing. You are blessed to share their home. You know you are their family. Brian and I talked about how things had changed. Yes, I rubbed it in that he was worse than me and pointed out how much he used to bug me about wanting everything to be just right. Maybe we were more alike than he wanted to admit. In fact, Ernie nicknamed him Bree from Desperate Housewives, if you need a reference to his hosting skills. I asked him what had changed. He told me that he hadn't changed. It wasn't until Wayne was part of his life that he thought he could have a home, entertain, travel, and host his family and friends in the manner he truly wanted. Once Wayne was by his side, he felt he could achieve anything he wanted. Wayne, you are his guardian angel. I'm sure you know that, but he always let everyone else know it, even when you weren't in the room. Although he did complain you messed up too many bathrooms the same day he cleaned them. He still bitched about it. He did appreciate your cleaning routine, though. He especially loved the Tom Cruise moments. I won't go into details, but we did giggle about that too. One last memory I want to share. It's no secret Brian and Wayne loved sneaking away to Puerto Vallarta whenever they had the opportunity. Of course, once again, they wanted to share their experiences with both sets of families, especially during Bear Week. And I'm not talking about Yogi Bear here. They arranged several trips in the last couple of years with a lot of us here. I'm sure Marty is still recovering. The pure crazy laughter coming from every corner we placed ourselves. Yes, we were that group who everyone probably thought loud asses. But before long, they were right there beside us, laughing and enjoying new friendships. I know that does not happen often, but it was always commonplace when Brian was by your side. That's something special you cannot buy. It's truly a blessing if you are lucky to be gifted with a friend like Brian. As serious as he was when something had meaning, you could not keep your face from hurting from laughter or the tears from falling. Brian will always be that star, a beautiful person that made each and every one of our lives that much more fulfilled. Brian found true love and married a truly amazing man, something he never thought possible. Thankfully, he was able to experience this gift during his life on earth that ended way too soon. I will be forever grateful he shared his time with us. I may not know everything about life, but Wayne, I believe Brian is now your guardian angel, and I know he will be with us forever because someone so special, so full of love, with so much laughter, does not disappear. Brian will be in our hearts until we are all together again doing tequila shots. We love you, Brian. We love you, Wayne. Your family is here for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that absolutely wonderful tribute, James. I know that It was probably not an easy thing for you to do today, but you did a wonderful job. We're now going to watch the second slideshow, and I've always thought that although words certainly tell us a lot about a person's life, pictures have the ability to tell us a great deal about others' lives as well.
Loving can hurt. Loving can hurt sometimes, but it's the only thing that I know. When it gets hard, you know it can get hard sometimes. It is the only thing that makes us feel alive. We keep this love in a photograph. We made these memories for ourselves, where our eyes are never closing, our hearts are never broken, and time's forever frozen still. So you can keep me inside the pocket of your ripped jeans, holding me closer till our eyes meet, and you won't ever be alone. Wait for me to come home. Loving can heal, loving can mend your soul, and it's the only thing that I know. I swear it will get easier. Remember that with every piece of you. And it's the only thing we take with us when we die. We keep this love in its photograph. We made these memories for ourselves, where our eyes are never closing, our hearts were never broken, time's forever frozen still. So you can keep me inside the pocket of your ripped jeans, holding me closer till our eyes meet. You won't ever be alone. And if you hurt me, that's okay, baby. Only words bleed inside these pages. You just hold me. I won't ever let you go. Wait for me to come home. 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 Oh, you can fit me inside the necklace you got when you were 16, next to your heartbeat where I should be. Keep it deep within your soul. And if you hurt me, well, that's okay, baby. Only words bleed inside these pages. You just hold me. I won't ever let you go. When I'm away, I will remember how you kissed me under the lamppost back on 6th Street, hearing you whisper through the phone. Wait for me to come home.
If I surveyed all the good things that come to me from above, if I count all the blessings from the storehouse of love, I'd simply ask for a favor of him beyond mortal king, and I'm sure that he'd grant it again. I want to stroll over heaven with you some glad day, when all our troubles and heartaches are vanished away. Then we'll enjoy the beauty where all things are new. I want to stroll over heaven with you. So many places of beauty we long to see here below, but time and treasures have kept us from making plans, as you know. But come the morning of the rapture, together we'll stand anew, while I stroll over heaven with you. I want to stroll over heaven with you some glad day, when all our troubles and heartaches are vanished away. Then we'll enjoy the beauty where all things are new. I want to stroll over heaven with you. I want to stroll over heaven with you.
Just like the sun over the mountain tops, you know I'll always come again. You know I love to spend my mornings like sunlight dancing on your skin. I've never gone so wrong as for telling lies to you, but you've seen what I am. There is nothing I could hide from you. You see me better than I can. Out on the road that lies before me now, there are some turns where I will spin. I only hope that you can hold me now, till I can gain control again.
can gain control again. I only hope that you can hold me now, till I can gain control again.
Cheers.
Wasn't I right that pictures do tell the stories? I know that Brian was very, very close to his family, and there are some family members that would like to share some of their own special and personal memories of Brian with us now. So I'm going to ask Laurie and Debbie to come forward.
Tough to follow up James, though. Yeah, he set some standards. Mom asked Debbie and I to say a few words today, as we were especially and extremely close with Brian. The problem is a few words. He was so incredibly special and loved beyond words. It's hard to say only a few words. He deserves more, and he certainly deserves more than the COVID rules allow. He could have filled 3 gymnasiums here today. Our brother Brian was anything but a traditional older brother. When typical older brothers teased their little sisters, Brian became our best friend. His laugh was recognizable and contagious to everyone, and never short of a full face of tears.
Like James and Laurie mentioned, Brian was known for many things, but especially his smile that would light up a room and his very distinctive laugh. I remember him telling me a story that happened a few years ago. He went to see a movie. It was obviously maybe a comedy of some sort. Theater is dark. He laughed out loud, and someone in the theater yelled, "Brian, is that you?"
Is it me now? Yeah. Brian and I shared a love of music. My fondest memories are having drinks while making what started as cassette years ago to 10,000 songs on an iPad now. During the years of cassette, as time together progressed and the drinks kept flowing, towards the end of the night, my writing was illegible, and I have no idea what songs I wrote on the jacket of the cassette. Brian was consistently a late nighter. He was always first to arrive and last to leave. When our sisters celebrated birthdays or events and such, we'd call each other, whoever was hosting, and say, "Is Brian off the next day?" Because if he is, well, he's in for the late night. We always worried about raising the son with Brian.
And how can anyone forget some of Brian's epic parties, especially the one when he woke up morning after a party to walk into his living room and find a shovel, his barbecue, and a large boulder in his living room. Now, I'm not going to tell you what he found on the front lawn, because my mom is here. Brian and I shared a love for the TV show The Amazing Race. And once Amazing Race started in Canada, we thought, oh, we have to apply. I thought having a token gay brother, we are a shoo-in. However, after watching our application video, which was doused in liquid courage, we had no chance at all. We were the only ones that found it funny.
Brian loved to attend concerts and travel, which we were fortunate enough to experience with him. Anywhere from hot destinations, Las Vegas and New York City, which was his favorite. In May 2010, when Times Square was shut down due to just a slight attempted bombing by terrorists that made world news, Brian still managed to find us the best joint with the cheapest martinis and a couple of fun sailors.
Brian was a great conversationalist. He was always present whenever you would talk. He listened to you. He wasn't on his phone looking at Facebook or anything. He asked questions. He was authentic, and he never conformed his values or opinions to reflect what others believed. Brian didn't discriminate. He was respectful to others' beliefs, which was always evident in every conversation he had. God, if tears were fat, I would be 110 pounds right now. Brian was the kindest man I knew. And like James said, he never held a grudge, and he always would forgive. I remember telling Brian that Chad and I were going to name our son Wrigley after him. It was one of the most special moments in my life to be able to honor my brother. We were proud to have him as our brother, and I only hope he was proud to have us as his sisters. I wish we could paint an entire picture of Brian and what he was like, but unfortunately, it would be like painting a Picasso, because he was truly one of a kind. We will love and miss you, Brian.
Forever, Brian.
Get your step.
Thank you so much for sharing those very special and personal memories. I'm now going to open up the mic for anybody else that has something that they would like to share. Please feel free to come forward now. Just the mic to suit you.
My name is Ernie, for those of you that don't know me, or it's been a while since we've met. There are people you meet that become a part of the rhythm and flow of your everyday life. Brian was one of those people. James and Brian were like two boys on an endless spring break. Brian and I had a much different relationship. We were about being prissy together, exchanging recipes, setting the picture-perfect table for a dinner party, having stylish serving bowls, talking about kitchen appliances. We loved being pampered. We also shared a love of travel and food. I remember the first time I traveled with Brian, it was to Puerto Vallarta. Surprise, surprise. Brian, Wayne, James, and I decided to share accommodations. Finding the right place was like traveling with Goldilocks and the Two Bears. And it was Bear Week. This condo is too far from the beach. This condo's on the wrong side of the highway. This condo's too small. It's like, As I was getting closer to our time to leave, I decided one Sunday morning, I booked a place and phoned Brian to let him know. My stomach was churning because I wasn't sure he would be pleased. The place I selected was a place Brian had always wanted to stay at. We went back to the same place the following year. It was just right. And that is the year I became even closer to Lori, and I value that time that we bonded together. Being foodies, Brian and I loved to go regularly out to lunch at different restaurants. Although I really shouldn't call them lunches because they extended into supper. Being from the States, Brian and I had endless discussions about politics, one of Brian's favorite subjects. Brian was a friend to many because of his many sides. He connected with others easily and for life. A man of substance and depth. He filled our lives with joy and will be deeply missed. He will live on through our memories and our reminiscing of, as Brian always said, good times, as he took a sip of Don David. Excuse me for just a moment. Another special moment for me was the day I became a Canadian citizen. I was looking out into the audience. Of course, looking back at me was Brian and Wayne. And yes, we had lunch at Earl's after the ceremony. We have all been blessed and are grateful to have had Brian share a part of our life's journey. And special condolences to Hazel and Mike. I am so sorry.
I'm Darcy, longtime friend. I've got some stories to tell, but they're on a very good level. There's a song that I like, and it's called "Gather Round Me People, There's a Story I Must Tell." Does anyone know what line that's from? It's a very famous Johnny Cash song. And, Brian would know that line. His music. I recall the first time I met Brian, some 20-odd years ago. It was at a house party, and I asked, "Whose music is playing?" Unbeknownst to me, the guy I asked said, "It's mine." That was the beginning of a great friendship. One time at another party I hosted, my own music was playing. Brian leaned over to me and said, "Darcy, your music is as eclectic as you." Then we both rolled our eyes, clinked our glasses of wine, and laughed. That is a true friend. Does anyone remember the day Brian drove away from his house with his entire CD collection left on the roof of his car? He was so upset that was literally years of work making CDs, and it prompted him to put all of his music on his iPad to have his collection forever. Their travel. Over the years, Mexico was the usual winter destination for us snowbirds. Puerto Vallarta would see us in hotels or in condos in the hills and experiencing the Mexican life with some awesome friends. Enjoying the beach, the food, and of course, tequila from one of our old favorite haunts, Frida's Bar. Most days in PV, we beach bums wouldn't see Wayne or Brian till midday, as the previous night's adventures prompted their sleep-ins, strong coffee, and later some poolside sun. Fond memories of beach vacations were had by all. Over the years, the boys would travel to Minneapolis for Pride. Several times I joined the boys and would travel on a different flight and later connect up with them at the Eagle, another favorite haunt of theirs in the U.S. 5 years ago, Wayne, Brian, cousin Bernie, and I went to New York City. It was Bernie and my first time to New York, but the boys had been there several times over the years and were good tour guides for us newbies. We got to experience New York nightlife at a tiny little gay bar called Ties. As you can see, his t-shirt has many of those. It would be their traditional place to hang out while in New York City. It was always so much fun. Their food and wine. We all know Brian's love for good flavored, full-bodied wines, mostly red, but it became a tradition in their home to have a house wine, as the boys called it. They found a good wine called Pampas, tasty and reasonably priced. Now, who has a house wine but only Wayne and Brian? But we all know their taste for wines from around the world. Just look at their wine collection, which could match any restaurant in town. Brian's flair for cooking was a highlight for them both and for family and friends. We all enjoyed the times for a dinner party, a barbecue, or even just some simple newfound appetizers Brian searched online for or in some fancy cookbook. I know I will miss the robust flavors and tantalizing recipes he made. I remember in Minneapolis one hot summer, we all went there for a weekend getaway. We all went out for a fancy dinner. The menu was superb. But as you know, Brian's palate was much more superior. Even though we all enjoyed our meals, Brian sent his back, which he was never afraid to do. Not at all. Which tells you he enjoyed his food and his taste for different spices, which he always ended up with some pretty appetizing experiments. Their marriage. Wayne and Brian went to Vancouver in November of 2019 under the guise of attending a concert, but they went to elope and got married. Brian's good friends, Connie and Warren, stood up for these boys, and once they returned home, Brian was so happy to show off their rings on their fingers. They both owed it to each other to seal this life together and make an honest man out of each other. It was a beautiful time to share their joy. His friendship. On January 13th, I got a chance to pop up to St. Paul's Hospital to say hi. It was a brief hello and a chat, but I was so happy to see him, and I would have regretted it if I had not had a chance to see him. But we said goodbye, and as I walked away, he gave me that big smile. Wayne would later tell me that Brian always enjoyed his and my friendship with each other. It was one of laughs, jokes, and very old friends. That is what a true friend is. As we reflect, in this moment, here with family and friends, it is humbling and honored to play a small part in your journey. In my own personal reflections, it takes great courage to banish fear away in the face of hope and memories. We will have days to cope, times of fears and tribulations, yet we are comforted to know these are true sentiments shared with everyone here today.
My name is Walter Kylick. I'm Hazel's brother and Brian's uncle. Hazel told me at one time that Brian told him that he felt he was a lot like his uncle Walter. And I was flattered by that, but after dwelling on it, I realized he was quite handsome, but I didn't think our physical similarities were the only things we had in common. We shared our interest in music and in politics. I enjoyed his sense of humor. He was very witty, and as Debbie mentioned, he was a great conversationalist. Last June, Violet, my wife, and I made an appointment with him to meet at a restaurant. It's in Stonebridge, Brown's Brewhouse or something. So we swung by to pick Hazel and Mike up to join us. And Mike said, "You guys go ahead. I'll just stay back." And I says, "Mike, for Christ's sakes, I'm paying this time, you know." That wasn't enough to make him move. So Hazel came along, and it was special. We didn't run out of things to talk about. We had so much in common that we were supposed to be there for lunch, and waiters started looking at us because I think they expected us to get out of there at some time. But it was wonderful to spend that time together. Our boys, Jeff and Lindsay, indicated that they have fond memories growing up with Brian. Jeff said he remembers vividly the trip he went with Pasichnyk to Cypress Hills. They remember the fishing trips that Mike and Brian came out and joined the boys and myself at Sandy Lake at Iroquois. I received a text message from Quentin, our youngest son from Calgary. Quentin reconnected with Brian a few years ago, and Brian and Wayne visited Quentin and very likely Julie in Calgary, and here's a note that Quentin sent me this morning. 2 years ago, Quentin came out to spend an evening with Brian and Wayne with the intent to provide some support and encouragement to Brian during a tough time. Debbie joined them, and they shared some of the food and drink that Brian was known for, and shared many stories late into the night. While Brian had every right to look for sympathy, he would have none of it. Instead, it was Brian who provided support and encouragement to me through his strength of character in the face of his challenges. I will forever be grateful for the time we had together. Thank you.
If there's no one else that has a memory that they would like to share, we are going to now watch the third slideshow.
Did all the words I never said hurt as bad as those I did? You know I never even cared, not before you. If I could go and turn back time, if I could only press rewind, I would bleed this heart of mine just to show you. And I'll be the first to say I'm sorry, first to say I'm stupid. Why do I always take it there? Is it hopeless, or maybe you still want to meet me at the altar, and I will lay it all to bear. And I told you all my secrets, all my fears, I've let go, and it's flawless. You are the only one, you are the only one. Don't you know, don't you know? Am I fading from your mind? Has the distance blurred the lines? They say all things heal with time, but it's untrue. I will linger on every word. I know it's more than I deserve. Chances are I'll make it worse, but I need to tell you that I'm sorry, tell you that I'm stupid. Why do I always take it there? Is it hopeless, or maybe you still want to meet me at the altar, and I will lay it all to bear. And I told you all my secrets, all my fears, I've let go, and it's flawless. You are the only one, you are the only one. Don't you know, don't you know that the hardest part's not having you to hold? Don't you know this old heart of mine can't bear to see you go? And I told you all my secrets, all my fears, I let go, and it's flawless. You are the only one, you are the only one. Don't you know? And I told you all my secrets, all my fears, I've let go, and it's flawless. You are the only one, you are the only one. Don't you know? And I told you all my secrets, all my fears, I've let go, and it's flawless. You are the only one, you are the only one. Don't you know?
Well, you have just heard some very touching and most beautiful stories and memories of Brian's joy-filled life. I would say that he was a person who had a larger-than-life personality. And now I have the honor of sharing just a bit more of Brian's life story with you now. Brian's earthly journey began on October 30th, 1963, in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. He was the third of 5 children born to Mike and Hazel. Of his family of origin, Brian is survived by his parents, Mike and Hazel, and his siblings, Brenda, Val, Lori, and Debbie, and their families. Brian was very fortunate to be raised in a most loving and very nurturing home, a place where he had the freedom to grow and to develop in his own way and his own time. Saskatoon was always home for Brian. He attended Carolyn Robbins School and then Mount Royal Collegiate, and he graduated with his grade 12 diploma. He wasn't a person who really liked school, though. But I have a feeling that given his personality, there was probably a lot of fun and mischief that he may have been part of during his school years. Brian was first employed in the hospitality industry, and then he became employed in the Saskatoon Health Association for many years until his illness forced him to stop work. Brian had a great work ethic. He was the most dedicated and hardworking and valuable employee. Brian and Wayne met through a friend, and their friendship very soon developed into a most loving and a very committed relationship. And then a few years later, they were married, and theirs was indeed a very strong and lasting marriage as well. Wayne told me that together, they were a very strong team, not only sharing a great love, but they also had an ongoing mutual respect and consideration for each other. And as you have already heard, Brian loved his family dearly, and he really enjoyed spending time with them, especially the weekly Sunday dinners at his parents' home, and I understand you always sent food home with him as well, so that probably was one of the things he liked too. Brian was a person who just seemed to be able to appreciate so many things in his life. Some of them were, of course, as you've heard, his great love of music, his love of cooking and enjoying good food, and having dinner parties and celebrations and sharing many happy times with family and friends at his and Wayne's home. Oh yes, and he was also a great bartender. Brian also really enjoyed traveling, as you have heard, some of the places that he and Wayne have visited, and that included trips to Europe, the Caribbean, United States, and Canada. And of those trips, one thing that was always certain, Brian would manage to make new friends wherever he went. And that is a great gift to have. Brian was certainly a person who probably learned early in life about the richness and resilience that humor can add to our lives. He certainly had a wonderful sense of humor. He loved to tease. He was simply a person of great fun to be around for everyone who knew him. And he knew how to be a party animal as well. Henry Ward Beecher once said, "A person without a sense of humor is like a wagon without any springs. It's jolted by every pebble on the road." One of the things that I really noticed while talking to Wayne the other day was the fact that Brian was truly a most loyal and dependable friend to so many people. And what a gift that is. And you have already heard about some of these wonderful friendships. That totally accepting attitude that he had made me remember a reading by Dinah Craig. And to me, this really describes true friendship. And I would like to share it with you now. Oh, the comfort, the inexpressible comfort of feeling totally safe with another person, having neither to weigh thoughts or measure words, but just pouring them all right out just as they are, the chaff and the grain together. Certain that a true friend with a faithful hand will always take them, sift them, keep what is worth keeping, and with a breath of kindness blow the rest away. One thing that we all learn at some time in our earthly journey is that life can be very unpredictable. And we never know what tomorrow may bring or what we may be called to face or to endure. Sadly, for the last several years of his life, Brian battled with cancer. And this was certainly a difficult time for him and a very painful time for those who loved him so much. But Brian fought this disease like he did everything else with great determination, courage, and never giving up. Near the end, he spent 21 days in the hospital, although he was able to spend Christmas this year with his family. In the midst of the constant pain that he was enduring, one of the nurses in the palliative care unit commented that Brian still had that wonderful smile. Fortunately, Brian did not have to take this last journey alone. He was most blessed to have the continual support and encouragement of his very caring family. Wayne was beside Brian for every step of this difficult path. And I know that was definitely not easy for you, Wayne, after I've talked with you the other day. But I also know from my own experience that you will always be very, very glad that you were there for Brian, right by his side when he needed you the most. On Sunday, January 17th, 2021, with his husband Wayne and his family by his side, Brian's earthly journey was very peacefully completed. And his family believed that Brian is now in a much better place with loved ones who have gone before. Brian was truly a person with so many, many fine qualities, too many to mention. He was the most loving, caring, and he was a non-judgmental person, which I personally think is very important. He connected with others. He connected with them with great loyalty, love, consideration, and he was always there to reach out to others in their time of need as well. Brian will always be remembered with much respect and love, and so deeply missed by his beloved family and his many, many friends. I really believe that in very difficult times like this, we all need to remember that although there is really no way we can ever escape many of the painful happenings in our lives, we will all have or lose people that we love dearly to death. And those kind of losses do leave huge, painful spaces and voids in our lives that can never really, really be filled. But I also think we need to remember that those dear ones also leave within us a great measure of love and hope and wonderful recollections of precious times spent together. Those precious memories are something that can never, ever be taken away from us. They will always remain in our hearts and within our living, and will also become a very important and vital part of our healing. And we really do need to be grateful for that. We are now going to have a short prayer and then the Lord's Prayer. Let us pray. Today, God, we lovingly remember and are so grateful for people like Brian who made the choice to live their lives with humor, laughter, joy, love, compassion, and also with genuine, unselfish concern for others. Brian's life is certainly a great example for each one of us to follow. It is indeed a loss when we have to say goodbye to those strong and generous souls like Brian, who by their living have helped and blessed so many other lives with their presence and their encouragement and their deep loyalty towards family, friends, and colleagues while they were on this earth. We do hope that in the challenging days ahead that Brian's family in this time of such great pain will be given the needed strength to be able to offer continual support and encouragement to each other as they travel down that long path that will, however, with hope and with patience, lead to a place of healing and wholeness once again. I ask you now to please repeat the prayer that our Lord taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Brian's family will always be very grateful for the many loving and kind and expressions of sympathy that have been extended to them during this time of great sorrow and loss. So the concern and the thoughtfulness of others is something that will certainly never, ever be forgotten. They are also most thankful to the staff at the Saskatoon Cancer Clinic and to the staff at the St. Paul's Hospital Palliative Care Unit. In times of severe illness and health challenges, we are so fortunate to have these dedicated and very caring healthcare professionals that are there for their patients and their family in their most vulnerable times of need. There will be a private family committal service at a later date. And I would like to say, as we leave the chapel today, you will each be given a small container with a Grand Marnier inside. At the end of the day, Wayne and Brian, that was one of their favorite things to enjoy together, was a nightcap of Grand Marnier. So we invite you to take the small bottle with you and take it home so that in your own time and in your own way, you can make your personal toast to Brian. I would also like those of you that have placed mementos up here on the tables up here that don't forget to take them with you when you leave. The recessional song for today is the beautiful song, Go Rest High on That Mountain by Vince Gill. But before we listen to this song, I would like you first to stand for the benediction. As we leave this place today, may each one of us try our best to go with genuine kindness in our hearts for others. May we always walk together without any kind of judgment, rather willingly tolerating each other, just as Brian did. May we always seek to show patience and understanding and genuine concern and love for others, lest we add to the world's troubles and sorrows. May we always want the rights of others to be recognized and respected. And may we always be ready to forgive others, just as we wish to have others extend forgiveness towards us. May we seek every single day, as Brian did, to gratefully live our lives to the very fullest and to strive to truly be people of joy and mercy and true consideration. Amen. Please be seated.